Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Bible for Busy People. I'm Jen, and one of the most frustrating parts of math class, okay, it was all frustrating for me, let's be real, was the pressure to show your work. In other words, to prove that your answer was right. There were times it made sense in my head, but to sit down and write out the steps felt literally impossible. I got the reasoning behind it, like you should be able to explain it if you truly understand the method behind what you're doing. But to me, if it was the right answer anyway, what did it matter how I came to it? Side note on this, I did not do too well in math class. My oldest child has the same problem. Finding the answer is easy, but explaining it or proving it is hard, and it can be a point of frustration. But my oldest is way better at math than me, so I think that makes it even more frustrating in a way, to have the right answer and then to have to prove it. Today we are looking at a person in the Bible that asked God for proof again and again. Ultimately, God helped him overcome fears and anxiety, and it resulted in the saving of the Israelites when they were in trouble again. So Israel found itself being oppressed by Midian, in that Midian would destroy their crops and livestock, so the Israelites were suffering from lack of food. We're reading in Judges 6, verse 11. It says, "The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, 'The Lord is with you, mighty warrior.' 'Pardon me, my lord,' Gideon replied, 'but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, "Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?" But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian.' The Lord turned to him and said, 'Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand.' Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." Gideon went inside, prepared a young goat, and from an ephah of flour he made bread without yeast. Putting the meat in a basket and its broth in a pot, he brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of God said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." But the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid, you are not going to die." So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it "The Lord is Peace." To this day it stands in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. So the angel tells Gideon to go in the strength he had. "Yeah, about that," Gideon said. He gave his resume, or legacy, of being too small and too weak. He was, in fact, hiding from Midianites and trying to prepare food in an unexpected place. Have you ever done that with God? Like, tried to explain your list of all the ways that you've failed? Like, clearly, God, you have the wrong person. But here's the thing. God wasn't telling Gideon to go on his own strength. God was saying to go in the strength he had, the strength with God. Gideon couldn't see much strength, but God said, "I am enough and more." The Enduring Word commentary says that Gideon's might was in his humility and lowliness, because that left God with so much space and power to work. And then Gideon calls God the Lord is Peace. We've talked on the podcast about names, specifically God's names. To give God a name was like claiming God as your own. It was an act of faith and trust. It was identifying God and calling out God's attributes. This felt like not just an identifier for God, but a promise of what was to come. Next, God had Gideon tear down an altar to Baal, a false god, and his townspeople were angry and came after him. But his father was the one to stand up for him, saying that if Baal was really a god, he could take care of himself, and then they left him alone. So later on in Judges 6:36, it says, Gideon said to God, "If you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said." And this is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. And then Gideon asked God to do it again, only in reverse, and God did. Sometimes I wonder if Gideon was testing God here. Jesus himself referred to the scripture, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." We also don't hear God saying anything in these passages, so I'm wondering if that was out of frustration or trying to give extra patience. But regardless, God met Gideon at his request. God did the same with Moses, showing up with miracles when asked for proof. I think God understands our hesitation. At the same time, the Bible shows God and Jesus being amazed at the kind of faith that takes God immediately at his word. I think that's where we want to be, but it's okay if we're not quite there yet. In the next chapter, which we don't have time to read, God whittled Gideon's massive army from 30,000 to 300 men. God didn't want Israel to think the victory came on their own strength. As anxiety-inducing as that must have been, Gideon kept going. And then God went one step further, allowing Gideon to overhear the enemy army expressing fear over the Israelites' certain victory. It was enough for Gideon to overcome any residual fear and doubt, and he led the charge against Midian, which of course they won with God's help. So it took quite a bit of convincing to get Gideon on board, but God seemed to meet Gideon in his overwhelm. This story challenges our notions of what or who is too small for God and what God can do with even a little faith, a little obedience, a little army, a little humility, and a little strength. When have you felt like what you had was too little for God to do anything with? Do you feel that lately? How can you take one small step forward in obedience while keeping your eyes open to how God will work, even with what little you have? I'll leave you with those questions. Let's talk again tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.